Hello, and welcome to Conversations Worth Your While, a show in which I chat with authentic, heart-centered experts about interesting topics to spark, inspire, and motivate personal and professional and even bigger change. So today our topic is about how entrepreneurs can create lasting, regenerative change. And this conversation is worth your while if you are an entrepreneur and you want to create change with your business. And understanding regenerative principles and becoming more aligned with natural systems is one of the biggest ways that you can make the lasting impact that you are looking to make. And you know what? They say the best time to plant a tree was yesterday, but if you didn't, the best next time is today. Creating lasting change takes time, so it has to start today. I am Linda Bucher, your podcast host. I am a transformational speaker and a master certified life coach. And I've got a whole giant backstory about living the life of a chameleon and feeling like a victim for 45 years until I discovered who I am. And now I get to live this rich, full life and make an impact in the world. And you also have a rich, full life to lead. You have important gifts to give to the world. You have a splash to make. So if you are interested in learning just how you can do that, hop onto my website, lindabucher.com, and just, there's a way to just get a chat with me, 20 minutes. Let's just chat. It's not a sales call. It's just like a chat. So I can get to know you and help you to understand how you can make an impact in the world. And today I have the pleasure of being joined by Josh Prieto. He is the co-founder of Seeds of Tao, and boy, is he making an impact on the world. Oh my gosh, and it's in such a unique way. Josh is creating regenerative economies in every region by providing education and support to impact entrepreneurs. Don't worry if that's a mouthful, because we're going to explain it all and talk about it and clarify and enlighten you, and you're going to be so energized and excited for our conversation today. So Josh, thank you so much for being here. I'm so excited that you're here with us today.
Thank you, Linda. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. So can you just tell us a little bit more about what you do, who you serve, like how you're making these positive, impactful ripples in the world?
Yeah. So I am really pleased and grateful that I get to work with entrepreneurs. For me, I believe an entrepreneur is a keystone species, one that can really create tremendous change in the world because they're willing to take on the risks of creating change. And for me, that's one of the biggest definitions of an entrepreneur is being able to take on risk to create change. And especially if you're an impact entrepreneur. And I serve them by being able to support them through the really, really difficult stages of their business, where it feels like it's a valley of death. And you're just trying to survive through this valley. And I specifically try to serve entrepreneurs that are creating an impact change and show them ways that they might be able to build a regenerative enterprise, an enterprise that's built to help and align with natural systems so that it creates the greatest abundance of life, right? For our people, for our planet, for future generations.
Beautiful, really beautiful. Such good work, important work you're doing. So let's do some clarification up first, because change starts with understanding. And a lot of people don't understand, A, how they could be part of the problem, B, how they could be part of the solution, right? And the ones who want to make an impact, that we feel that we're here, our purpose is to make an impact in some way. Maybe this conversation today is going to open up a way that they didn't even know that they could make a beautiful impact. So let's start with this understanding. Let's talk about the regenerative movement in like layman's terms, for those of us who aren't in that area maybe yet, right? So we can get a better understanding. What does this mean? What is the regenerative movement?
Yeah, so the regenerative movement, if it's just a brief, even history lesson of what the movement kind of started from, there's a lot of wisdom and understanding through nature, right? And through time, we've recognized patterns through nature. Farming, it comes and good farmers understand those patterns in really easy ways. It becomes very intuitive when they're really attached to the land and what they're doing. And in a similar way, our the regenerative movement stemmed from those understandings. It could be understandings from indigenous wisdom of people living in one place for a very long time and building a connection to their environment, and those patterns kind of formalize. There's a movement that kind of preceded the regenerative movement, which was the permaculture movement, which was introducing these principles. Some of them coming from many of them coming from indigenous understandings and wisdom that help us to be in right relation with nature. And that's really what the regenerative movement's about. It's about being in the right relationship to nature, where we're not working against it, where we don't feel like we're something separate from nature, but we are nature. And how do we create the greatest potential for life in our own lives, in the lives around us, in our community, and the ecosystems and our planet. So that's the regenerative movement, I guess you could say, in a nutshell.
Okay, beautiful. So what is a regenerative entrepreneur?
Yeah, so an entrepreneur that is doing regenerative work really is someone that is utilizing and understanding those patterns that nature is showing us, and it is in right relationship to those patterns, or is working towards that. I would say there's no purest view of what a regenerative entrepreneur is, right? Especially in our current systems and what we're learning today, and what we're learning from what we're taking from the Industrial Revolution, from all the different places that we've been before and where we're at now. It's not an overnight solution to become a regenerative entrepreneur in a purest view. We're slowly becoming, and so there's, I would say, degrees of what a regenerative entrepreneur is, right? You could be someone that thinks that doing producing no waste is a huge part of your business model, and utilizing that waste, and or you could be someone that's creating full ecosystem systems for communities or your farm or whatever, and you have that, and there's different gradients that we can satisfy, and it's about getting better at being in the right relationship to nature and creating solutions to do so through your enterprise, your business.
Right. So it's broad. What you're saying is it's broad. And when you
Yeah.
zero waste, it's interesting. I'm just evaluating a few products for a company, a cosmetic company that has zero waste. So when I did that, what they did is they sent me a packet. The packaging is like the zippered pouch that I can send back. We go back and forth with it. So there's no mailers getting thrown in the garbage. So that was beautiful. The mascara and the lip gloss are in these heavy steel containers because they're refillable. So I send it back when it's empty, they refill it and send it back to me. So no plastic, going to waste, throwing out mascara and lip gloss, and so I thought that was fantastic. And this mailer has special places for me to put them in so they won't slide around. And then the face cream is actually in this little tiny pod that you mix with a certain amount of water and shake it up, and it stays like face cream for all 3 months until it's used up. Like, it doesn't separate or anything. And then when you want to refill, you keep your glass jar and you just get this little pod, and the pod just has it's kind of like a vitamin E capsule. That outside is also part of it. There's nothing to throw away. You're just adding water, and so we're not paying for shipping for the water, because I'm adding my own water, right? So this is a regenerative company. It feels like to me, because that's like their whole thing is and now of course I'm evaluating the product. I'm like, yeah, the mascara goes on really nice, smudges a little, but I'm like, that face cream, that's awesome, that's working great. Lip gloss, love that, so, but I wouldn't be trying it if I'm not just trying anything. I wouldn't be trying it if I didn't believe in the purpose, what they're doing behind the scenes here. And I'm like, it makes me feel like I get to be part of it because I'm choosing this. So even if I'm not an entrepreneur, I get to be part of this movement by using that refillable mascara and doing my job and sending it back and getting more that way, So I think it's a really cool thing you're showing. This is big, broad spectrum. You don't have to be a giant company, cleaning waterways or anything. You can make your own impact in lots of different ways and at various different levels. And it's beautiful. So I appreciate that example, for sure.
Yeah. Well, in many ways, we don't want to be a big business in this, or we don't have to be, we don't have to find our way to always constantly be growing in a regenerative business, right? Sometimes it's about finding the right size, finding, that fits with the industry, with the resources, with the local economy, and those pieces. So yes, I would say what they're doing with that makeup company is moving towards a more regenerative future, right? And that is a regenerative business, right? Yes.
Yeah. So I love that you brought that up, future, because that's really what we're talking about. We're talking about creating a better future for our children and our grandchildren and generations to come. And it's not about looking back and saying, what do we do poorly and beating ourselves up? It's what can we do now to be part of creating something better? Yes, there's certainly messes to be cleaned up, but how about we can think even more futuristically, like how not to create new messes? Because we learn and we grow that way, right? So, but if we're consciously thinking in this way, I think it's a beautiful thing. And so future, thinking of it as a gift that we leave, a legacy, but not, and like what I think about with, the change that I create in the world. I'm a ripple maker. I make ripples that ripple far and wide, through myself and my actions, and through my clients and their actions as well, just like you're doing. So you're a ripple maker as well. But what we're doing is we're not just leaving a legacy of positive change and impact in the world. We are leaving an example for the next generation. When our children see us doing this, and then they're saying, oh, look at the people who are really doing good in the world. They're happy and they're doing something that matters. I want to be happy and do something that matters, right? And they're doing something for us, for my generation, that matters. Like, wow, what if I could pay that forward and do something for my own children and my grandchildren? So it not just leaves a legacy of positive change, it leaves a legacy for our children to follow that example. It's a very beautiful thing in so many ways.
Yes, yes. Oh, and in a lot of ways, that's how I kind of came into this the regenerative movement, and really focusing on the entrepreneur. That I mentioned before, that entrepreneurs are the ones willing to take on risk for that change to happen, right? So I truly feel called in a lot of ways, because I was noticing in my own life, I was using this product or using this thing, or involved in this industry, and I saw all of these different choices being made, and even the smallest choices can have great impacts over time, right? And I was seeing, like if I'm producing this amount of waste, all of these plastic things that I'm using and consuming, and I'm giving that, it's actually giving that over to my it's a challenge that now my children have to work with, right? It's all this plastic waste. What do we do with all this plastic waste? And it came from just a small decision of I now am going to wrap this thing in plastic because it makes it convenient for someone to pick up and purchase and produce for me, and all of these different decisions that I've made now, but it wasn't in alignment with some of the natural systems that are at play, because this plastic thing doesn't break down. It's a forever. It lasts and creates problems in oceans and in our own bodies and in our own systems, right? And if we have a better understanding of those natural systems, we are able to create businesses that don't potentially create those problems in the future. Now that we're aware that this is going to be a challenge, and it comes from a really strong understanding of natural systems, right? As an entrepreneur as well.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I love, also the word awareness. That's what you're really talking about. So when we have more information and we are more aware, we can make decisions that have a positive instead of a negative impact. And we're not talking about let's get rid of all the plastic in the world, like maybe the IV lines and the, some things that go in humans, right? Like we can't have paper IV lines, right? But maybe there's some things that are always going to be necessary, but because we have an awareness, there's things that are unnecessary. Now, I live in New York State, and plastic shopping bags are outlawed. You can only get paper at the grocery store, and I think that's a beautiful thing. And I bring my reusable bags back and forth all the time. And we also outlawed styrofoam containers for your takeout. If you're leaving, a restaurant and you want your food, it's really coming in a compostable, recyclable food container that has it's made out of paper or metal. Some of them are still old foil ones. But we're not getting plastic anymore because it's outlawed in our state. And I think that's a beautiful thing that even at the state level, there's some really important things that can be done. Now, I've been places where, you're in a hotel and you're like, is there a recycle can over here? And they're like, no, we don't do that in our state. Like when I was driving down where I am now, I'm like, your state doesn't recycle? No. So it's happening some places, it's not happening everywhere. But we're not talking about it's all or nothing. We're talking about being aware and saying, what are some things we really can do, right? And yes, it's a change. And I'm sure what they did in our state is they allowed the grocery stores and the restaurants to use up the inventory they had. They were allowed to use it. It wasn't like banned, you have to throw it in the garbage. But there was no new sale. So if you hadn't stocked up on 2,000 of them, guess what? You're going to be buying recyclable stuff. And I don't know if there was any regulation put on where they weren't allowed to price gouge on that because it was necessary now for restaurants to be able to do this in paper, use paper instead. So it's not going to be everywhere, but every little bit helps. And it's not an all or nothing thing either. We're not talking about we have to get rid of all plastic everywhere, right? So there's levels, and so I think that awareness to say at my level where I am in my business and my life, what can I do, right? Like we don't buy plastic water bottles in our house anymore. They were so convenient, but we think when I was a little kid, we were drinking water out of the hose. We were thirsty. It was like, turn on the hose, there was no plastic water bottles. And for a while, I will say I used them because I wasn't being conscious. And now I'm like, no, I put the filter on my fridge and I fill my glass, and I fill my to-go bottle, back, and I take that in the car with me. So it's just the awareness helps us be more conscious.
It really does. And awareness is kind of that first step of, but it's there's a permaculture philosophy or principle that really starts off with that, and that's kind of a good first step in being able to apply things into your business. It's observe and interact with your environment, right? So it's to build understanding, it takes great observation, right? And interaction. So if I'm building a business and I can't necessarily observe and interact with the entirety, if I'm building like a multinational business and I'm trying to scale really, really big, really, really quick, it is going to be really, really hard for that business to observe and interact with the environment that it's impacting, right? And when I say environment, I'm talking about the people that the client that it interacts with, the wildlife, the ecosystems that it engages with, right? So if you take a big business like, let's just say Coca-Cola, that's sending lots and lots of plastic bottles, lots and lots of cans, and all over the world, right? Can they observe what their impact is in a real way or in a very easy way? A lot of times, really not, right? So a lot of times, it really is the smaller business that can observe and interact with its environment, and it's a bioregional business that can do this as well. That really understands how their product or service is adding value and creating greater life for this and future generations and the environment at large, right? Yeah, so I love how you brought us to that point.
Thank you. So would you share like your journey? Why is this, regenerative movement and culture and having entrepreneurs be the seeds for change for this? Like, why are you so passionate about this?
Yeah. I mentioned just briefly that a lot of it has to do with, uh, you know, being a father and just knowing that, if I'm building a business and I'm creating these types of things, I'm creating potential problems for the next generation. That to me is like, oh, I feel a sense of duty there, right? Of being able to put my business and design my business in a way that actually is better for the next generation. So as a family person, that's really what it is. And I've gone on my own journey of being able to find that for myself, and recognizing, gaining that understanding, and then realizing that no, I can't do that. And yet at the same time, I have the power as an entrepreneur to create that change, right? Because it's a risky deal to start a business. It's also a risky deal to create change, impactful change for future generations, and doing that through your business is to me, it's one of the most rewarding ways that I could be of help and have a strong sense of being able to do something to create change. And
Mm, yeah,
those are the big reasons why.
right. Beautiful. And like I mentioned earlier, what a beautiful example you are showing your children, right? It's like show, not tell, right? Showing
Yes, yes.
example. Yeah. So it's beautiful. Okay. So, um, what can a conscious entrepreneur do like today, right now? Like if they say, okay, I'm in, I want to be part of the solution and stop being part of the problem. What can I do? Where do I start? So where do we start?
Yeah, dove into, we've kind of put our toe in the water of this, so to speak, with that observe and interact principle that we mentioned earlier, that I had mentioned earlier, and we were talking about. That's really one of the biggest first steps that you can do as an entrepreneur that has a business, is to go out into your environment and observe nature, because we're trying to find the right relationship with nature. And if you spend enough time in nature, you start to recognize patterns. And we want to design our businesses according to the natural, inherent, and eternal patterns that nature has. Because if you want something that's truly going to create change, lasting change, the best way to do that is to pattern it off of something that is inherent in the world, that is eternal, and that is the natural systems. That's what God is, in my opinion, what God has given us, right? The systems that He's created for us that perpetuate, that create more life. And as you do that, you'll start to recognize, as an example, if I'm a gardener and I'm going outside and I'm getting my hands dirty in the soil, I realize certain things about the world, that nature doesn't produce waste, right? It doesn't create. Everything has a use, that it's the function stack, and I can create one thing, or nature creates one thing, and there's several uses for that one thing that we're looking at, right? Everybody says that carbon is, uh, you know, a problem, that's in the world, but in reality, we're all carbon and we're all made up of it. And sequestering carbon is, you know, what nature already does, and there's ways that we can learn from that system alone. So when you're out in the garden, you're recognizing these things, is learn from those patterns that you see. How can I produce no waste in my business, right? How can I stack the functions of this particular service or product in ways that align? And one thing you'll notice in nature, a pattern, is that there's no really one big um, species, or you can look at humans or whatever, but everything is so weaved together, right? And it's collaborative. And so look at the ways that you can more fully not puff your chest out and think that I'm the number one business, I'm the number one entrepreneur, and say that. But what are the ways that you can collaborate, build collaborative solutions and products. There's so many different things that you could learn from the patterns in nature. So that's what I would say. First thing that you could do right now, just get out and start recognizing those patterns.
Right. That's beautiful. That's really, really nice. I've actually used looking at nature and patterns being in nature as a tool, as a life coach as well. Because I'll have them identify some challenge, right? I have a client identify a challenge that they're having. And then I'll have them go out into nature and notice, you know, what's happening in nature, why nature doesn't have that challenge, you know, or if it did, how it was resolving it, right? What was the solution to it? You know, what was naturally happening? We can learn, we can find solutions when we're not looking at ourselves, right? It's too hard, like, oh, I have a blind spot, but you go out and you can find a solution in nature. You know, like one of the funny things that I'll have people do is, or even watch a nature video, go watch a video of animals, right? So what's your challenge? Here's your challenge, you know. So you got some challenge, you wrote it down, like, I don't know how to do my social media for my business or something like that, right? And then you go watch this funny animal video. And in this video, I remember with this one, there was a mama bear and she was like lazing around and she had 3 little cubs and they were in someone's backyard because there was a hammock. And one of the cubs went on a hammock. And then when the next cub went on the hammock flipped over. And then when and it kept doing it. And of course I'm cracking up, like, this is hilarious, you know? And watching these little cubs try to solve this challenge until they did. And then saying, what can I learn from these cubs? Like, they're just baby little animals, right? How did they solve that challenge? How am I flipping over my own hammock? And what could I do? And it was really like get one to brace. Well, like, it was basically about collaboration, right? And like, oh, that's how I can solve this challenge.
Very cool.
The answers are everywhere. It's in the way the animals show up in the world. It's in the way, like you said, nature, the systems, the fact that you are absolutely right. Everything is co-functional in some way, right? And, you know, and I love that you brought up that nature has no waste, you know? I mean, I feel good because I take all my notes on my iPad with my iPencil and I have no paper, paperless, like 3 years ago, like everything paperless. And it feels less cluttered, but I also feel like I'm doing my duty a little, helping out a little too. So that's really beautiful. So I love that you gave us some examples. And so, and all we got to do is then think a little creatively. Like, now that we've noticed that, what did we notice? Maybe we'll jot down I always give homework, jot down what you noticed when you went out in nature today. You know, what did you notice? What was it? Was it a bird that did this? Or was it, you know, the grub in the garden that did that? Or, you know, or what are you noticing? And then look at how is nature working here? And what could I do? What's a parallel? Because it lets us use our little creative thinking cap. What's a parallel that I could use to be more in alignment with the natural order of things? One way I do that as a coach is, and I think before we hit record, we started this. I'm like, you know, when people say like, oh my gosh, blah, blah, blah. Like, well, how are you out of alignment with the natural you? Right?
Yes.
I'm helping people do that at the personal level. And I love that your company is supporting people to do this at a bigger level that is impacting our future. So thank you. You've been a wealth of information, and I'm so excited that I got to meet you and that we got to talk today. And I know that you have a community, and I would love if you would share a little bit more about that.
Yeah. So we have, if you're an entrepreneur, an impact entrepreneur that's wanting to create lasting change, and do so we have a support network for you to be able to do that. And you can just hop on our website, Seeds of Tao. It's spelled Seeds of, and then the Tao is spelled Tao, like the Tao Te Ching. It means the way. So Seeds of the Way, but seedsofdao.com. You can find our community, and there's several things that you can do on that community. You can join us for a monthly think tank event where we come together and support each other as entrepreneurs building regenerative change. And you can come join us for a masterclass event. All of these are free events to help you bring greater awareness of and community around building lasting regenerative change through your enterprise. We have masterclasses from entrepreneurs that are sharing how they've been able to build their own regenerative businesses. And we have lots of great communication and resources available to you to help you through that valley of death of the really, really tough, difficult parts of early stage business.
Right. Oh, very beautiful. Thank you so much. I'm going to make sure I put your contact information, including your website, into the show notes of this episode. So all our listeners and watchers, if you're on YouTube, can get that information, reach out, see what you guys are up to at Seeds of Tao, and learn a little more, join a community, become more aware, gain a better understanding. It's a beautiful thing. So thank you so much for being a guest, Josh. I'm so excited.
Thank you.
Awesome. Okay. Well, that is our show. Once again, I am Linda Bucher, a speaker and a master certified life coach, and I'm on a mission to inspire and impact millions of people to know their worth, to share their gifts, and to deliberately create big, beautiful ripples in this world. So if you feel stuck or unworthy or unfulfilled or out of alignment in any way, go to my website, lindabucher.com, and you can even go /chat with Linda, and we'll have a chat. So I want to thank Josh Prieto, the co-founder of Seeds of Tao, for being here today. And I would like to thank you, devoted listener and lifelong learner, for sharing your time with Josh and me today. So until next time, please subscribe and make sure that you've made this conversation worth your while by fueling the spark that it ignited.